We're live.
Right.
Daniel, thank you for chiming in today. Wanted to welcome everyone to Agents Who Win Coaching by Daniel Betancourt and Todd Schroth. Today, we wanted to talk about how to write a winning offer. We're going to try to come to you every Monday with tips and tricks on how to build your business further. Daniel, jump in.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Thanks for tuning in. Right now, something that we hear a lot about in today's market, you've probably experienced it yourself if you're an agent, are getting into bidding wars and multiple offer situations. The lower the price range, the more common it is. The higher the price range, the less common it is, but it's very common right now. Obviously, interest rates are low, so lots of buyers are out there shopping. And despite being in a pandemic, the market is pretty strong. So there's a lot of competition out there. So today, there are tons of strategies for getting a winning offer. Today, we're going to bring you 10 of our favorites.
So let's roll with number one.
So number one would be to minimize contingencies. Todd, you and myself, we do a lot of listings and we review offers in these multiple offer situations very often. And sometimes you get agents out there that are writing in all kinds of contingencies for all kinds of unlikely events. And that just makes the offer seem less attractive. So you want to make your offer as clean as possible, reduce the amount of contingencies on there. And all of those periods, you want to shorten those as much as possible as well.
So let's talk about some of those contingencies. I was just writing some notes earlier. Some of those are, not even contingencies, just add-ons is what I was calling them, like home warranties and closing costs and other stuff like that. It's really about bottom line, I think, for a lot of sellers, but also terms.
Right.
So what are, I have the common one come up, appraisal contingency.
Right.
They put it in there, and a lot of times I feel that the appraisal contingency can be overcome by the financing letter if it's within a timely fashion.
Right.
Unless you're getting someone who's going to be willing to pay over and above appraisal, then that's where you get a different story. So what are your thoughts on that one?
Right. Being kind of overly redundant with some things. You've got a financing contingency. You've got an FHA rider that protects the buyer for an appraisal. Then you add on an appraisal contingency, and in the special remarks, you say, contingent on property appraising for the contract price. So a lot of that is extra fluff. It shows more professionalism if your contract is more concise. And the experienced listing agents know that the terms are in there to protect the buyer in a certain scenario. And if your buyer is willing to pay a few $1,000s over the list price, those appraisal contingencies are working against the buyer because, a lot of buyers out there, I see offers on a regular basis saying, hey, my buyer is willing to pay $10,000 over your list price as long as the property appraises for X amount. So I would remove some of those contingencies and other things that are covered by, title, contingent upon, closing out a permit for something that is about to be completed anyway, or something that title's going to make us do anyway. I just make your offers clean and concise, in my opinion.
We have the, in Florida, I'm not sure what the rest of the country's like, but we've got the lien search, which they do a lien search in the property. And sometimes people want it like cleared out if there's any expired permits or open stuff that's out there. Obviously, anything with the HOA is going to be cleared out. You get a lot of roofing permits that have expired 10, 15 years ago. We're not going to clear out a 15-year-old permit. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
And it's not going to stop you from selling the house. So some people don't want other people's problems, but they're not a problem because they're just there. I don't think the county's going to come knocking on your door 20 years later and saying you need to update your roof permit. Well, guess what? It's time to replace the roof anyways. So that permit will go away.
Right. And if it's something that you can find out during the inspection period, if you've got a 10-day inspection period and you can get out of the contract for any reason during that inspection period, if, the buyer finds something wrong, if it's something you can find during that time, then it's already covered essentially in your inspection period. So why write, three more bullet points on your contract to cover? I think they want the buyer to show the buyer that they're really looking out for them. But 20 offers later, the buyer might end up working with someone else who can actually get the job done.
So let's dive into number 2.
Number 2 is giving an attractive deposit. So have you ever gotten an offer with like a $500 deposit or $1,000 deposit, or you get 15 offers and you get several of them with $1,000 deposit on a $300,000-$400,000 home? Those low deposits are not attractive to the seller. They're not attractive to the listing agent. So I would suggest for your customer, offer up a sizable deposit. See what the buyer, this is a competitive market. So explain to the buyer, we're in a competitive market. If you don't get this home, someone's going to get it. We're up against X amount of other offers. Every blank line on this contract, we have to fill it in with the most attractive terms possible. So with your deposit, if you can give 10% down, great. If you can't do that, but you can give 5% down as your deposit, then do that. But leave the $1,000, $500, $1,500 deposits alone, even in a low price range when you're in a competitive offer situation.
I typically recommend people put down at least 1% of the sales price,
right.
And your money is protected. I mean, you're really protected through the entire loan commitment period, and so it's like you've got 3 to 3.5 weeks of protection for your buyer. I mean, past the inspection period. So if your buyer's serious and they want to close, forbearing any issues, you should be fine. I think 1% is low, but if you are competitive, if you want to be competitive, then you need to bump it up to 2-3%. Now,
right.
If it's your entire down payment, that's a different story. If you're doing FHA versus conventional, we just wrote one this weekend they were putting 20% down, so we bumped it up to 4% as a deposit. Multiple offers, relocation company. What else can we do to make that stronger, at least on that side?
Right. So exactly, as long as your deposit's protected and all the other terms of the contract are written properly, the deposit's protected. So just be generous and make your offer attractive. You only have that one shot to make a great first impression.
Exactly.
Another one is escalation clause. Using an escalation clause.
Good one.
A lot of agents are using those. Again, if you want to make it more attractive, you should add a term in there that the buyer is willing to pay X amount of dollars over the appraised value. Because if you write an offer way over the contract price, but then add in appraisal contingency, it really takes away a lot of the weight that you were gambling on with that escalation clause.
My most recent one was, we're asking $345 for the house or $350 for the house. Had a bunch of offers on, I think 12, and one of them was as high as $368. And I said to the agent, I said, "Do you really think this is going to appraise at $368?" "Oh yeah, man. The appraiser." I'm like, it ain't happening. And so we came down to the negotiations of what are you going to pay over the appraised value, not less than the asking price.
Right.
And so you got to really fine tune your words there, because I learned this from an agent last year who was writing on one of my listings, who I think it was a 575 listing. She wrote it in at 580, but said they would pay $5,000 over the highest offer, and so we and then she added in, but they will not pay less than. So right. You always say you're going to pay $10,000 over appraisal. Well, what if that 580 came in at 550? We know my seller's not going to sell it at that. So right. Your contract says you'll pay at 560. We want to know not less than, and that's what you want to, I think, one of those key words that you want to add in there.
Right, exactly. Another one is shorten your closing time frame, or investigate with the listing agent and see exactly how much time the seller wants. So some sellers want to close as quickly as possible. Other ones might want an extra month. But you really want to tighten up in a multiple offer situation. My recommendation would be communicate with the listing agent and see exactly how much time the seller would like for a closing period. But otherwise, I would try to shorten that as much as possible and not ask for too much time, because in my opinion, the more time a home is under contract, the more opportunity there is for something to go wrong.
We had the one we just did on Saturday. The buyers are first-time buyers, and I think they were talking to their dad, who gave them some good tips. And ironically, that a parent is giving a kid a good tip on buying something versus saying, hey, it's negotiate as much as you can. He said, if they need more time in the house after closing, we're willing to give them a month to 3 months. We're okay with that. Not right. That I want to give someone 3 months in my house after I close. I want to get in there. But if you can offer, that seller, maybe they're buying something, and you can offer them that, let's do a 30-day closing, remove your contingency. So you're more of a solid offer, because if you have a contingent contract, then it's going to be harder to get your offer accepted. So say, look, we're going to close before, and we're going to have an opportunity to stay in our house beforehand, and then we can get the next one closed. And if we lose that, we still have time to find something else.
Right. That's one of them that I wanted to talk about today, which is offer post-occupancy.
Yep.
So it's really important if you do post-occupancy. A lot of realtors shy away from it. I know a lot of brokers are probably cringing at hearing that right now. But on one of my most recent transactions, I had it written up specifically by an attorney to make sure that it was done legally and properly, which I recommend, anyone doing post-occupancy, pre-occupancy, do that, communicate with an attorney. But I had a scenario where my sellers had to buy something, and their offers were going to be looked at less favorably if they if their offer was contingent on the sale of their home. So the best solution for that scenario, we had a cash buyer, we had multiple offers on their home, and we had multiple full price offers on a 500 plus home. And I told one of the agents, if you really want your offer to be looked at favorably, let's close in 2 weeks, and then just let the sellers occupy the home 30 days after closing. And I think, that would be what it would take in order for them to accept your offer over the other ones, which are very, very similar to yours.
And I think that's where it really comes down to what the terms that you're offering, because it's not always price. It's not always, price, condition, location, obviously are the three key things that are going to sell a house. But to get your offer accepted, it's terms. And that closing in 2 weeks, offering post-occupancy, things like that are going to get your offer accepted quicker.
That's right. Another one is communicate with the listing agent. I mean, how many times have you had 10 offers on one of your listings and you spoke to none of the agents? And sometimes a couple of the agents, so you feel a little comfortable with them because you know them, and you would expect that their buyers are pretty solid. But it goes a long way for you as a buyer's agent to call the listing agent, speak with him, let him know that you're an actual person, not just shooting out multiple offers for the same buyer, and really let them know that you're persistent, you're a hungry agent, your buyer's really well qualified, you're going to do everything possible to make the transaction smooth on the buyer side, and you really look forward to the opportunity of working with the listing agent. If you have to stroke that listing agent's ego a little bit, go for it. Like whatever it takes. You're trying to get a home for your customers. You're trying to get that one closed and not, have to spend another 20 hours home shopping for the same customer when it could be done.
We had one of our team members, Don, had recently done one, and he reached out to the listing agent. It was multiple offers, of course, and so he got on video text and sent them an email. Hey, John and Mary, this is Don. I just wrote an offer for my buyers. They're excited about the property. Sent them a text message with a video. Sent the offer with a video.
Mm-hmm.
Followed up a couple hours later, make sure they got it with a video. And he got the offer accepted. Those agents called him after the fact to say, we got to step up our game on presenting offers, because what you did got your offer accepted.
That's right.
So that's over communicating, and they were excited, to have that. You don't need BombBomb. You don't need any of these, the video programs to do that. If it's just a quick video text, 30 seconds to a minute long,
right.
Do a quick introduction, introduce your lender while you're on that video.
Right.
So they can all get that. One follow-up to that, Danny, is the lenders too. Get your lenders to call the listing agents and talk about their process, and the buyer's qualifications, what's been submitted, things like that.
That's right. If the listing agent gets a call from the lender, that listing agent's going to know that the lender specifically knows about this property that the buyer's making an offer on, and it just makes that buyer that much more attractive. I've had lenders where I've called them, just to check on the buyer's qualifications, and they have no clue who I'm talking about. They haven't heard from that buyer in 2 months, and they ever wrote that approval letter. So that's disheartening.
It is. Or they don't even call you back, and it's like, I need to get to my lender and say, look, hey, Johnny, I've got a buyer. We're going out looking this weekend, so please call this agent, let them know we're submitted, or we're hot and heavy this week. So just be prepared for a call from us and/or a listing agent. And I'm texting my lenders saying, hey, get a call from this. If you're busy, step out, because we need this accepted, because it's our 5th contract.
Right. So if you're shopping for a lender out there, that's one of the questions you should ask that loan originator is, would they be willing to call the listing agent, in those times where you have a competitive offer situation? Would they be willing to call on behalf of the buyer just to support the buyer's offer in those situations? It goes a long way.
One of my new recent preferred partners that we were working with, I met him about 5 years ago, and I think about 4 years ago, we got an offer in on one of our listings, and he actually called, and that's how we connected, and that's how he became one of our preferred partners, because of what he did there, and that stood out compared to a lot of our lenders that we know don't do that. I mean, nobody on the team even does. So I was kind of impressed.
To any lenders watching, it helps, and you're the agents that bring you customers. You'll impress them in the process as well.
Yep. So what's our next one?
Yep. So another one that I have is have a contingency plan in case of a low appraisal. So we're in a market right now where a lot of sellers are pushing the envelope. Everyone wants to be the highest sale in the neighborhood. There aren't always comps that support the values that some of the sellers are asking. Some of the listing agents are nervous that their listing won't appraise. So if you approach the listing agent in advance and say, I've spoken with my buyer and this is what we're willing to do in a scenario. If the home were to appraise low, my buyer's still willing to pay this price. That would go a really long way in a multiple offer situation. I've got a scenario like that right now. We're pushing the envelope on one of my listings. We just went pending a couple of days ago, and the buyer's agent, she wrote a cash offer. We talked about it, and she said she's going to not include an appraisal contingency because her buyers were really serious and they didn't want to they didn't want another buyer to snatch it out from under them. So that was an example of someone, and she was in constant communication with me, asking a lot of questions, which gives me a lot of confidence in the agent and in their buyer.
This follow-up is really what it is. So you're going to be able to talk to them through the transaction. They're not part-time. They're full-time agents. They're going to answer their phones. Your coordinator is going to be able to work with them. The title's going to be able to work with them on a better basis. That's ironic for a cash deal too to happen like that. One we just had, again, $350 on the asking price, $345 on the appraisal. Agent came back and said, we just put a brand new roof on it. And he goes, well, I just explained to the buyers, you can't get a roof for $5,000. So I definitely think it's worth putting the money up. So you find ways to pull that money together. And it's not truly a $5,000 difference, because if you look at the down payment difference, it's usually about 10% less than that. Right. So play with the numbers and understand what the additional monies that you're bringing to the table.
And that goes along with communicating with the listing agent, because the buyer's agent may not have all these ideas, but the listing agent, especially one that has a lot of experience, is already trying to problem solve in advance. Like, what do I do if this happens? They're already thinking about it. So if they can get an agent also that will work with them in those areas, everyone benefits. The seller benefits, the buyer's going to get the house that they really want, and the agents close and win.
Yeah, perfect. So what's our next one?
The next one is a lot of agents submit letters from their buyers. I've gotten them, from buyers. First of all, you want to make those letters personalized. So, Todd, have you gotten letters from buyers that, just looks like they white out the address and just put a new address in there, or even it'll be all typed out and then they just write in the address of the newest home that they're making an offer on? I really love your home. From the moment I walked in, it was just perfect, and things like that. So if you're going to write a letter to appeal to the seller's heartstrings, you want to make it personal to the house and make, comments about things, specific to this house that the buyer or the buyer's kids loved, or, what they envision the family doing in the future and how they'll enjoy various aspects of that seller's house. If you're going to write a letter and go through that, you want it to be as effective as possible and not work against you.
I think, the more personal you can make it, the better. What do you think about including a family photo on there?
That works. Some sellers are, they don't get emotionally invested in the offer decision process, and other ones very much do. I've had sellers accept inferior numerical offers because of some, emotional heartstring that the buyer tugged on while they were visiting or in their letter. I had an investment property that I was considering for myself a while back, and the seller was someone that I knew pretty well. And my offer was just as good as the other offer. And he said, hey, hopefully this doesn't affect our relationship, but I really like the fact that the other people who are buying my property were planning to retire there and, enjoy it in their retirement years versus, using it as an investment property. So, and I missed out on that one, but that happens sometimes.
They take the emotions out, or they brought emotions into it, which, it is when it's your primary. I always think about when we move, who's going to occupy our house next. And, it's like, I almost don't want to sell it because of that. But then I'm like, who's going to rent my house next? If we,
right.
when we move.
Right.
And so it's like, you've got to think about those things. But, the pictures are different for everybody. Sometimes I want to keep personal. I love when we do get the stories like you talked about with the letters that dive into the sellers there and how they want to raise their family or their kids. They saw kids on the street. So make it very personal to the properties.
Right.
Be prepared to write a quick letter that you can edit or whatever, because, as we get the offer submitted, we need to get them on right away.
Right. Yeah. Number 10 is, if you're writing one of these letters, just identify something unique about the house that really appealed to the buyer. I think that's great. Daniel Bracho on my team, he's really good at doing that. I've seen some of the letters that he's helped craft for his buyers, and he's awesome at getting offers accepted in multiple offer situations. So, sometimes it's as basic as, I noticed that you all love French bulldogs, and my buyer loves French bulldogs, and she has a French bulldog, or she's planning to get a French bulldog, and this yard would be perfect for her French, something like that. I mean, there are people out there that you can walk through a house and really see what the homeowner is passionate about oftentimes. And if the buyer sees eye to eye on that, why not use it? And I wanted to mention, this is a collaborative effort. So anyone who is watching this video, there are lots of other, we could sit here probably for another half hour and brainstorm on another 30 things that you could do. But I'd love to see what the viewers out there have been doing or what they suggest in the comments in the video. That would be awesome.
Yeah, if you guys, if you're commenting after we're done live, please post your questions. We'll be happy to chime in after the fact and put some stuff in there. If you want to dive into some one-on-one strategies on an offer, happy to do that as well. Was that all 10 that you had? That's
10. Yep.
Okay. My last one I wanted to throw in there was offer deadline. Someone brought this up on another group, and normally we put 24 to 48 hours. Mm-hmm. Do you think about putting a 3 or 4 day deadline for the offers to get accepted? Because if it's Friday and we're waiting till Monday to look at offers, but I put a 24-hour deadline on it, technically the Sunday, the thing is dead. And so seller's going to respond on Monday and he doesn't respond to me, it's because my offer expired. So, right. Put a 4 day deadline if you're in a multiple offer situation, and you can always pull your offer back if you guys find something else.
Right. Yeah, that's a great one. That's an example of just tightening up your contract, and that just gives the seller takes a little stress off their back.
Yep, and know that their offer is still valid, because I've had some that only want to wait till Saturday at noon, and then all of a sudden they realize, hey, we want to get back into that offer game, and I'm like, sorry, we've already accepted one. When they realize they should not have backed out when we asked them if they're going to extend or not. So right. Definitely keep it out there.
Another one that I've seen buyers do is if the buyer, some buyers out there, they have the cash to purchase a home, but they don't want to use it. You can make your offer not contingent on financing. Even though you're planning to get financing, you can show proof of funds, and you can make your offer, take away the finance contingency, and just, make the offer that way. A cash offer is always going to reign supreme over finance offers. So if you have one without a finance contingency, to a lot of listing agents, to them, it's the same as cash.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you run your 30-day contract, gives your lender plenty of time to do stuff, explain that you may be getting a loan on it, but we've got the money to pay if we decide to switch. So,
right.
Well, yeah. Everyone, I appreciate you tuning in today. We'll be back on Friday with my show. And then we've got Rebecca and Jose Soto coming on, talk about married and real estate. We'll be back again on Monday to bring some more coaching tips coming soon. We'll give you the topic.